hey, if you're feeling lost right now, and I mean like really lost, like you're standing in the middle of your life and nothing makes sense anymore, I need you to know something. Actually, maybe I need to know something too, you know? I see you. I think I see you. Because I think I've been exactly where you are. More times than I want to count, really. You know, after The Matrix came out, I thought I had it figured out. Fame, success, all that. People treating me differently, opportunities everywhere. And for a while I felt like maybe I'd finally made it, right? Like I'd found my place or something. And then I woke up one morning and I felt empty, just empty, which is weird, right? Because nothing had actually changed. Same house, same everything. But inside it was like I'd taken the red pill only to realize there were more pills, you know, more pills to take, more layers of whatever reality actually is. And I'm sitting there thinking, wait, how many layers are there? How deep does this go? And nobody gives you a manual for that. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed that morning and this thought it hit me like, what if everything I think I want isn't actually, what if it's not what I want? What if I've been living someone else's idea of success or whatever, which was terrifying because if that's true, then what is true? Like, who am I underneath all these layers of expectation and achievement and image, you know? Maybe it was after a loss for you, the end of something important, or losing someone you loved. Maybe it was after what should have been a celebration, like a promotion or graduation or reaching some goal you'd been working toward for years, and instead of feeling fulfilled, you felt hollow, empty. Or maybe it was quieter than that. Maybe you just woke up one day and realized you'd been living someone else's life, following someone else's map. And suddenly you're standing there thinking, how did I get here? And where am I supposed to go now? However you got to this place, however you ended up feeling lost, I want you to know something. You're not alone in this place. You're not broken. You're not behind or failing at life or any of that. You're just human, right? We're just human. What I'm about to share with you, I don't know if it's a fix. I mean, it's not a fix, you know? I wish I could give you a fix, but life's it's more complicated than that, isn't it? What I'm offering is more like learning to read the signs that were always there, learning to trust something that's been with you all along, even when everything else feels uncertain. It's about remembering that you have this internal guidance system, I guess. This way of sensing what's right for you, what direction to move in, even when you can't see the whole path. Even when you can't see any path, really. And look, I'm still figuring this out myself. Like just last week, I had this moment where I felt completely confused about a decision I needed to make. So this isn't guru to student or anything like that. This isn't someone who has it all figured out talking to someone who doesn't. This is one person who's been lost talking to another person who's been lost about what actually helped, about what I think I've learned in those dark moments when nothing made sense, when I couldn't even figure out how to want anything, about how sometimes being lost is just the first step toward finding something you didn't even know you were looking for. Maybe. I mean, I could be completely wrong about this, but what if you're not as lost as you think you are? What if there's something inside you that already knows the way and it's just been quiet for a while? If you're open to that possibility, let me share what I think I've discovered about navigating when you can't see the destination, because the truth is, maybe the destination isn't the point anyway. Maybe the point is just learning to trust the journey, you know, especially when you have no idea where it's going. I spend a lot of time on motorcycles, a lot of time. And when you're riding at night on unfamiliar roads, there's this moment when you realize you don't know where you are, like at all. And your first instinct is to panic, right? Like, oh no, I'm lost. I'm going to run out of gas. I'm going to be stuck in the middle of nowhere. But then something shifts, or maybe it shifted for me. I don't know. You could panic, or you could realize that not knowing where you are is actually, it's information. it tells you to slow down, pay attention, feel for the road, feel for what the bike is telling you, what the wind is telling you. I remember this one night, I was somewhere in, I think it was Northern California, and I had no idea where I was. No GPS, no nothing. Just me and the bike and this road that seemed to go on forever. And I'm thinking, I'm lost. I'm really lost. But then I started to notice things, the way the road curved, the smell of the ocean, so I knew I was heading toward the coast, the sound of the engine echoing off different surfaces, and I realized I wasn't just lost. I was learning something about where I was, about where I needed to go. What if feeling lost isn't a problem to solve? What if it's data, information your system is giving you about something that needs to change? Like, maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're just getting information you haven't learned how to read yet. I used to think being lost meant I was doing something wrong, like fundamentally wrong, like I was broken or not paying attention or not smart enough to figure out my life. But then I started noticing, and this took me years to notice, every time I felt completely lost, something was trying to emerge. Something new wanted to happen in my life. After River died, I felt so lost I couldn't even function for a while. But looking back, that lostness was information. It was telling me that the way I'd been living, the way I'd been thinking about friendship and mortality and meaning, it wasn't working anymore. Something deeper needed to happen. When The Matrix ended and I didn't know what kind of actor I wanted to be next, that felt like being lost. But maybe it was just my creative system saying, hey, you've outgrown this version of yourself. Time to find the next one. So maybe the question isn't, how do I stop being lost? Maybe it's, what is this lostness trying to tell me? Like, what information am I getting that I'm not listening to yet? There's this concept in Zen, beginner's mind. I'm probably going to get this wrong, but the idea is that not knowing is actually closer to truth than thinking you know. When you think you know something, you stop paying attention, right? You stop being curious. You stop seeing what's actually there. But when you're lost, when you don't know, you're paying attention to everything. You're open to everything. You're in what they call beginner's mind. And that's actually a sacred space, I think. Maybe. I mean, I could be completely wrong about this, but when you're lost, you're not operating from your assumptions anymore. You're not following your habitual patterns. You're just present with what is. And maybe that's exactly where you need to be to see something new, to discover something you couldn't see when you thought you knew where you were going. I don't know if this makes sense, but what if being lost is what if it's just your soul's way of saying, hey, slow down, pay attention. There's something here you need to see. There's some direction you need to feel your way into rather than think your way into. What if lostness is actually, and what if it's actually a form of guidance? Just not the kind we're used to recognizing. When I'm preparing for a role, I can't think my way into the character. I mean, I try to, but it never works. I can read the script 100 times, analyze their motivations, their backstory, all that. But there's this moment when I have to stop trying to understand who they are and start sensing who they are, It's like the character already exists somewhere, and I'm just learning to recognize them, like meeting someone for the first time, but they're inside me somehow, and I have to feel my way toward them, feel my way into how they move, how they breathe, what it feels like to be them. I remember working on Neo, and I kept trying to think about who he was. But Neo isn't a thought. Neo he's a feeling, a way of being in the world, and I had to learn to sense that rather than analyze it. Your body is constantly navigating. Right now it's maintaining your balance, regulating your breathing, sensing the temperature in the room. It's processing thousands of pieces of information without your conscious mind getting involved, which is amazing, right? Like, you're not thinking, okay, now breathe in, now breathe out, now adjust your posture. So what if it's also navigating your life direction? What if your body knows things about what's right for you that your mind hasn't figured out yet? I started noticing this after River died. I couldn't think my way through grief. I mean, I tried. I read books, I talked to therapists, I tried to understand what was happening to me. But my body knew things, when to cry, when to be still, when I needed to move, to go for a walk, or get on the bike and just ride, when to reach out to people, when I needed to be alone. My body it would know. Like I'd be sitting there thinking I should call someone and my whole system would feel heavy. Or I'd be avoiding people thinking I needed to isolate and something in me would feel restless, like I needed connection. And I started to realize maybe that's guidance, maybe that's information I can trust. Here's something you can try right now. I don't know if this will work for you, but think about a decision you're facing. Any decision. Big, small, doesn't matter. Got one? Now take a deep breath and imagine choosing one option. Really imagine it. How does your breathing change? Does it get deeper or shallower? Does your chest feel more open or more tight? Now the other option, really feel into it. What happens to your breath? What happens in your body? Your body already knows. It's been trying to tell you. Maybe for a while now. But maybe you're like me. Maybe you've learned not to trust these signals. Maybe you've been told they're not reliable, that they're just emotions or wishful thinking or whatever. Or maybe you followed them before and things didn't work out the way you expected, so you decided they couldn't be trusted. I get that. I really get that. There have been times when I followed what felt right and it led to pain, to mistakes, to situations I wished I could undo. But when I'm riding, when I'm on the bike, I don't steer with my mind. I don't calculate the angle of the turn or the physics of the curve. I lean into it. My body knows. My body understands the relationship between speed and gravity and momentum before my brain even starts to think about it. And following internal guidance, maybe it's like that. Maybe it's not about being right all the time. Maybe it's about staying responsive to what is, staying in relationship with the moment, with the situation, with whatever's actually happening rather than what I think should be happening. Maybe it's about trusting the process rather than controlling the outcome. So maybe start small. Like, what do you want for breakfast tomorrow? Don't think it, don't plan it or analyze the nutrition or whatever. Just feel it. What does your body actually want? Which route do you want to take to work? Which song do you want to listen to? Let your body choose. Not your preferences, not your habits, but what feels right in the moment. It's like strengthening a muscle you forgot you had. This ability to sense what's aligned for you, what's true for you, what direction wants to happen next. And maybe the more you practice with small things, the more you can trust it with bigger things, with life things, with the things that really matter. I don't know. Maybe I'm making this sound easier than it is. It's not easy. Learning to trust yourself when you've been taught not to trust yourself, that's hard. That's really hard. But what if you already have everything you need to navigate? What if the guidance system is already there? It's just been quiet for a while, or maybe you've been too busy to listen. What if the way forward isn't about getting more information, but about learning to feel the information you already have? I've studied martial arts for years now. Not that I'm an expert or anything, but there's this principle that took me a long time to understand. You don't fight the opponent. You don't push against their energy. You flow with it. You use it. And when you're lost, there's this urge to fight against the lostness, right? Like, I shouldn't feel this way. I need to figure this out. I need to get my life together. All this resistance to what's actually happening. But what if you flowed with it instead? What if you stopped fighting the feeling of being lost and just let it be there? This is hard for me to talk about because I still mess this up, like all the time. Just last year, I was working on this project and I felt completely lost about it, about what I was trying to say, about whether it mattered, about everything really. And my first instinct was to push, to force clarity, to work harder, research more, talk to more people, just make it make sense somehow. And the harder I pushed, the more confused I became, the more lost I felt. It was like, have you ever been in quicksand? I haven't, but I imagine the more you struggle, the deeper you sink, right? So finally, I stopped. I stopped trying to figure it out. I stopped pushing against the confusion, and I just sat with it. Just sat with not knowing, which was terrible, by the way, really uncomfortable. Every part of me wanted to do something, fix something, figure something out, but I just let myself be lost for a while. And that's when things started to shift. Not immediately, not dramatically, but something changed. Like, the confusion was still there, but it wasn't the enemy anymore. It was information, data about where I was in the process. Sometimes the way out is deeper in, sometimes you have to go through the confusion to get to the other side of it. There's this thing about water. Water doesn't fight the rocks in a river. It doesn't push against them or try to move them out of the way. It flows around them. It finds the path of least resistance. And eventually it carves canyons, right? It shapes the landscape. Maybe our internal navigation works the same way. Maybe confusion is just a rock in the river, and we learn to flow around it, not through it. Not by fighting it, but by finding the path that feels most natural, most aligned. In The Matrix, Neo had to stop trying to bend the spoon and realize there was no spoon. Which sounds like nonsense, but maybe there's something there. Maybe there's no right direction to find. Maybe there's just the next authentic step, and then the next one, and you trust that the path emerges as you walk it. But then, I think, and this is where I get confused, is that just spiritual bypassing? Am I just making excuses for not taking action? Like, oh, I'm flowing with the confusion, I'm trusting the process, when really I'm just avoiding the hard work of figuring things out. This is where it gets complex for me, because sometimes the authentic step is to stop moving, to be still, to wait, and sometimes it's to move, even when you don't know where you're going, even when it feels scary or uncertain. How do you know which is which? How do you know when you're trusting the process and when you're just being lazy or scared? I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe it's both. Maybe you trust the internal guidance and take practical action. Maybe you flow with uncertainty and make concrete choices when you need to make them. Maybe being lost and being found aren't opposites. Maybe they're dance partners, Maybe they move together. Maybe you can be lost and found at the same time. Like right now, talking to you about this, I feel found in the sense that I'm sharing something that feels true to me, but I also feel lost because I don't really know if any of this makes sense. I don't know if I'm helping or just confusing things more. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's actually perfect. Maybe the combination of knowing and not knowing, of certainty and uncertainty, of being found and being lost, maybe that's just what it feels like to be human. Maybe the goal isn't to never feel lost again. Maybe the goal is to be okay with feeling lost, to not make it mean something's wrong with you, to trust that even in the lostness, especially in the lostness, something is trying to emerge. I don't know. What do you think? Does this resonate with you, or am I just rambling here? I want to tell you about a time when my internal navigation system completely went offline, and I don't usually talk about this, but maybe it's important, It was after my girlfriend died, Jennifer. And everything I thought I knew about life, about love, about meaning, about how the world works, gone. Just gone. I remember standing in my kitchen one morning. I don't know how long after. Time was weird then, and I couldn't even decide if I wanted coffee. Not because it didn't matter, but because I couldn't feel anything, like nothing. The signals weren't just mixed or confusing. They were silent, completely silent. I kept waiting for my body to tell me something. Hungry, thirsty, tired, anything. But it was like someone had unplugged everything. All the guidance I'd been learning to trust. All the internal wisdom we've been talking about. None of it was there. And I panicked. Because if you can't feel what you need, if you can't sense what's right for you, how do you live? How do you make it through a day? That's when I learned about emergency navigation, I guess. When your internal GPS is offline, when the signals aren't there, you go to basics, not because you want to, but because you have to. Eat something, anything, even if you don't feel hungry. Sleep, even if you don't feel tired. Breathe, even though breathing feels impossible sometimes. Move your body, even if it feels like lead. Call one person, even if you don't have anything to say. Do one small thing that feels like caring for yourself, even if you don't understand why you should care about yourself anymore. It wasn't about listening to internal guidance then. It was about basic maintenance, like keeping a machine running even when you don't know what it's for anymore. And it wasn't dramatic, the way the signals came back. I kept waiting for some moment of clarity, some breakthrough, some return to feeling like myself again. But it was more like learning to hear again after being underwater for a long time. First, I could feel whether I was hungry or not. That was huge, actually. Being able to sense hunger again. Then whether I was tired, then whether I wanted to be around people, or if I needed to be alone. Little signals, tiny pieces of guidance, not about big life decisions, just about getting through the day. And slowly, very slowly, bigger feelings started to come back, like I could sense whether a conversation felt good or draining, whether a place felt peaceful or agitating, whether I wanted to work on something or if I needed rest. What I realized, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but what I realized is that sometimes the most lost you've ever been is right before you find something you didn't even know you were looking for. Not necessarily something external, not a person or a job or a solution. Sometimes it's a different way of being in the world, a deeper way, a more compassionate way, maybe. Like, before Jennifer died, I thought I knew what love was. I thought I knew what mattered. But after everything collapsed, when the signals started coming back, they were different, more tender maybe, more aware of how fragile everything is. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if suffering makes you wiser, or if that's just something people say to try to make sense of senseless things. But here's what nobody tells you. You don't graduate from being lost. It's not like you figure it out once and you're done. Like, okay, I've been through the worst thing. Now I know how to navigate everything. Life keeps changing. You keep changing. People you love keep leaving or dying or growing in different directions. So you keep recalibrating. You keep learning to listen to signals that keep evolving. Just last month, I felt completely lost about whether I wanted to keep acting, which sounds ridiculous, right? After all these years, but it happens. The guidance system goes quiet sometimes, or it starts pointing in directions you weren't expecting. And maybe that's beautiful in a way. Maybe the fact that we can feel lost means we're still growing, still open to becoming something new. Still alive in the deepest sense. Because if you never felt lost, if you always knew exactly where you were going and why, would you ever discover anything? Would you ever be surprised by who you could become? I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to find meaning in things that don't have meaning. Maybe loss is just loss and confusion is just confusion, and I'm just making up stories to make it bearable. But when I think about that morning in the kitchen, when I couldn't even feel if I wanted coffee, and then I think about right now talking to you, feeling like maybe there's something worth sharing in all this mess that feels like navigation to me, that feels like finding a way forward even when you don't know what forward means. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Just keep feeling our way toward whatever wants to happen next, even when we can't see it, even when we can't understand it, even when it hurts. Sometimes you need emergency protocols, you know? When the confusion is so intense you can barely function. When anxiety is drowning out every signal, every piece of internal guidance we've been talking about. When you wake up and you can't even imagine getting through the day. When everything feels impossible and you don't know how people just walk around and live their lives like the world makes sense. In those moments, you don't look for the life path. You don't try to figure out your purpose or where you're supposed to be in 5 years. You look for the next right thing. Just the next right thing. Maybe it's taking a shower. Maybe it's stepping outside for 5 minutes. Maybe it's calling someone who loves you, even if you don't have anything to say. Maybe it's just making coffee and drinking it slowly. I know that sounds almost insultingly simple when you're in real crisis. But sometimes simple is all you can handle. Sometimes simple is heroic, actually. Direction emerges through movement, not through thinking, even if you're moving slowly, even if you're moving in what feels like the wrong direction. At least you're generating data, you know? At least you're not stuck in the paralysis of not knowing what to do. Even wrong movement teaches you something about what feels right. Even small movement can shift something in your system that thinking alone can't shift. When everything feels static, when you're just frozen, I ask myself, what would love do here? Not romantic love, but bigger love. The love that includes you. The love that would treat you the way you'd treat someone you care about who was struggling. Because we're so harsh with ourselves when we're lost, right? We're so so critical and impatient and mean to ourselves in ways we'd never be to a friend. When everything hurts, when you're just in pain and you don't know how to make it stop, I try to ask, what would be one small act of kindness toward myself right now? Not a big gesture, just something small. Making tea, taking a warm bath, calling in sick to work if you need to, letting yourself cry if you need to cry, letting yourself be angry if you need to be angry, letting yourself be exactly where you are without trying to fix it or move past it or learn from it or any of that. When nothing makes sense, when the whole world feels upside down and you can't find anything solid to hold on to, I ask, what's one thing I know is true? Maybe it's just I am breathing. Maybe it's I am here. Maybe it's this is hard. Start there. Start with what you know is true, even if it's tiny, even if it's painful. After River died, sometimes the only thing I knew was true was I am sad. That was it. That was the only solid thing in a world that felt completely unreliable. So I started there. I honored that truth. I let myself be sad without trying to fix it or understand it or make it mean something productive, just sad. And slowly, very slowly, other truths became available. I am sad and I am breathing. I am sad and I am here. I am sad and someone brought me food. I am sad and the sun is shining anyway. Not better truths, not happier truths, just more truths. More pieces of reality I could touch and feel and know were solid. I don't know if this helps when you're really in it. When you're in crisis, advice can feel insulting, you know? Like, oh, just take a shower and you'll feel better. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, when your navigation system is completely offline, when you can't feel any guidance at all, you don't need to navigate. You just need to exist, to keep existing until the system comes back online. And it will come back online. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it will. The guidance will return. The signals will start coming through again. Until then, just the next right thing, just one small act of kindness toward yourself, just one truth you can hold on to. That's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. At some point, and I can't tell you exactly when this happens because it's gradual, you know? At some point, something shifts. You stop being someone who feels lost and starts being someone who navigates uncertainty, I guess. It's a different way of moving through the world. Like, instead of thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, I must be doing something wrong, you start thinking, I don't know what I'm doing, let me feel my way forward. It's subtle, but it's huge, actually. It becomes less about having the answers and more about staying curious, staying responsive, like checking in with yourself regularly, the way you check your mirrors when you're driving. Not because something's wrong, but because it's just good navigation, you know? How am I feeling right now? What does my body need? What feels aligned? What feels off? Not as a big spiritual practice, just as basic maintenance. On long rides, I've learned to feel when something's off before I can think what's off. Maybe the engine sounds slightly different. Maybe the road feels different under the tires. Maybe the wind has shifted. I can sense it in my body before my mind processes what it is. That sensitivity, that's what you're developing with your life. That ability to sense when something's not quite right or when something's starting to feel really right before you can analyze why. And here's what I've noticed. The more you trust your internal navigation, the more magnetic you become to situations that actually fit you. It's like you stop trying to force yourself into spaces that don't want you, and you start finding spaces that do. I don't know if that's mystical or just practical, but it happens. When you're operating from what feels authentic to you instead of what you think you should be doing, things start to align differently. Opportunities show up that actually match who you are. Relationships develop with people who get you. Work becomes less about pushing against resistance and more about flowing with what wants to happen. Other people feel it too. When you're operating from internal guidance instead of external expectations, it gives other people permission to do the same. It's contagious in the best way. Like when you're in a conversation with someone who's really listening to themselves, really present with what they actually think and feel, it makes you want to be more honest too, right? More real. Though honestly, Honestly, I still have days when I second guess everything, when I wonder if I'm just making it all up, if there's really any such thing as internal guidance, or if I'm just lucky sometimes and calling it wisdom, you know? Like maybe all this stuff about following your body's signals and trusting your intuition is just confirmation bias. Maybe I'm just noticing the times it works and ignoring the times it doesn't. Maybe there's no such thing as internal navigation, and I'm just a guy who's gotten good at justifying his random decisions by calling them guidance. But then I think maybe that doubt is part of it too, you know? Maybe certainty isn't the goal. Maybe the goal is just responsiveness to life, to other people, to the mystery of what wants to happen next. Maybe the point isn't to never doubt yourself. Maybe the point is to stay in relationship with the uncertainty, to keep feeling your way forward even when you're not sure if you're feeling anything real. Because the alternative is trying to control everything with your mind, trying to think your way through life. And I've tried that, and it's exhausting, and it doesn't work very well. This way of living, it's not easier exactly, but it's more alive, I think. More responsive to what's actually happening instead of what you think should be happening. And it's like learning to dance with life instead of trying to choreograph it, you know? You still show up, you still make choices, you still take responsibility, but you're doing it in conversation with something bigger than just your individual will. I don't know what that something bigger is. Maybe it's just the intelligence of life itself, the way ecosystems balance themselves, the way wounds heal, the way people find each other when they need to find each other. Maybe internal navigation is just learning to trust that intelligence, learning to participate in it instead of fighting against it. Or maybe I'm completely wrong and it's all just random and I'm making up stories to feel better about not having control. But even if that's true, even if it's all just stories, these stories make me kinder to myself. They make me more patient with the process of being human. They help me show up with more curiosity and less judgment. And maybe that's enough, maybe that's everything. So you came here feeling lost, but maybe now you can feel that you're not actually lost, you know? You're just between knowings, between one version of yourself and another. And that's a sacred space, actually, that in-between place. The internal navigation system I've been talking about, it's been active this whole time we've been talking. Right now, as I'm saying this, check in with your body. What is it telling you? What feels true? What feels like something you want to explore more, or something that doesn't quite fit for you? That sensing, that's it. That's the guidance system working. You don't need anyone's permission to trust what you know. You don't need external validation for internal truth. You don't need me or anyone else to tell you that what you're feeling is real or worth listening to. It's yours. It's always been yours. The path appears as you walk it, but you have to start walking. You have to take that first step, even when you can't see where it leads, even when you're not sure it's the right step, maybe especially then. And look, maybe being lost isn't the opposite of being found. Maybe it's just another way of paying attention, another way of staying open to what's possible. Maybe you don't need to be found. Maybe you just need to trust the navigation, to trust that even when you don't know where you're going, something in you does. Something in you is always feeling for the next right step. I don't know if any of this helps. I hope it does. But even if it doesn't, you'll find your way. You'll find your own way of navigating, because you always do. We always do. Sometimes we forget that we can.